What if I told you that the secret to attracting love is to stop searching for it? Sounds like a paradox, right? We spend so much time chasing, strategizing and planning, trying to fit ourselves into someone else's idea of what love should look like. But what if, in the process, we've been missing the point entirely? You don't chase butterflies. You create a garden so beautiful that they come to you. This old proverb holds more wisdom than we realize. The harder we push, the more distant love seems. But when we let go, when we focus on nurturing ourselves and living in our truth, something magical happens. Love, in its most genuine form, starts to gravitate toward us naturally. It's a tricky game, one where the less you try to control the outcome, the more profound the results. If you're ready to stop forcing connections and start attracting the kind of love that aligns with who you truly are, stick with me. There's a simple but powerful shift waiting for you. And hey, if this resonates, go ahead and subscribe for more insights like these. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Lesson 1. The illusion of control. There's a strange irony in love that many people don't realize. They think they can control it, guide it, and direct it to where they want it to be. But here's the tricky part. Love is one of those things that slips through your fingers the harder you try to grasp it. Imagine trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it flows away. Love works the same way. Let's paint a picture. You meet someone, and right away, there's a spark. You feel it, they feel it, and suddenly you're consumed with thoughts about how to keep that connection alive. You find yourself planning conversations, rehearsing lines in your head, over-analyzing every text, every glance, every silence. But as you do this, something subtle but powerful happens. You start to lose sight of yourself. In trying to fit into what you think the other person wants, you start to become less of who you are. And this is where things get tricky. Ancient philosophers understood this well, though they may not have been talking about love directly. They spoke often about the illusion of control, the idea that the more we try to force things outside our control, the more frustrated we become. The same applies to love. You can't control how someone feels about you, and you can't force a connection to deepen just because you want it to. The harder you try to control love, the more elusive it becomes. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how the people who seem most at ease with themselves are often the ones who attract others naturally? They aren't trying too hard. They aren't overthinking every move. They're simply being themselves. And in doing so, they create an environment where love can flourish without effort. It's like the concept of letting things flow. The more you allow space for things to unfold naturally, the more they do. But here's the tricky twist. When you stop focusing on trying to make love happen, it doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're wise enough to understand that love isn't something to be chased. Instead, it's something that grows naturally when you create the right conditions for it. By being authentic, by being present, and by letting go of the need to control every outcome. It's a lesson in surrender, but not in weakness. Surrendering to the flow of life doesn't mean giving up. It means trusting that the right things, the right people, and yes, the right love will come into your life when you're ready, when you're truly yourself. It's the ultimate paradox. The more you stop trying to force love, the more likely you are to find it. So here's the question. What would happen if you stopped trying to mold love into your expectations and let it shape itself instead? This is the tricky part of the lesson, where the real magic lies. It's not about doing less. It's about doing things differently. It's about creating space for something genuine, something real to unfold. Love, after all, isn't something you control. It's something you allow. Lesson 2. The paradox of wanting less. Imagine walking through a marketplace, surrounded by people haggling, shouting, and chasing after deals. There's chaos everywhere. Now, Imagine someone standing calmly in the middle, completely unbothered by the frenzy. Who do you think draws the most attention? It's the calm figure who isn't rushing or chasing, who seems completely content with their own space. Love operates in a similar way. When you stop desperately wanting it, it's drawn to you in the most unexpected ways. The tricky part is this: the more you want something, the more it feels out of reach. The desire itself creates a kind of pressure that pushes the very thing you want further away. Think of it like a cat. Have you ever tried to chase a cat? It runs, but the moment you sit down and relax, the cat might just come to you, curious about why you're not chasing anymore. Love is often like that cat. Here's the twist. When you stop making love the central focus of your life, when you stop needing it to feel whole or validated, it starts to find its way to you naturally. But how do you reach that place? It's about wanting less, not in a way that denies you happiness, but in a way that allows you to be content without constantly seeking external validation. It's about turning your focus inward, finding fulfillment in who you are, rather than what someone else can give you. This isn't about pretending you don't care or putting up walls. It's about genuinely shifting your mindset to a place where you realize that love isn't the answer to your problems. You are. Love is beautiful, but it's not what completes you, because you're already whole. When you embrace this truth, you stop projecting your desires onto others, and instead, you create an atmosphere where love can blossom naturally, free of expectation. Now let's take a lesson from ancient philosophy. The Stoics believed in the idea of amor fati, or love of fate. It means embracing life as it comes, without clinging to specific outcomes. They understood that our constant desire for more, whether it's love, wealth, or recognition, creates suffering. But when you stop needing things to be a certain way, you open yourself to the possibility that life and love will unfold exactly as it should. Here's the tricky part. It's not about giving up on love. It's about realizing that you don't need to chase it. You don't need to fight to keep someone's attention, and you don't need to mold yourself into someone else's ideal. The less you need love, the more freely it will flow into your life. It's the paradox of wanting less. So, the next time you catch yourself feeling like you need to do more to attract love, take a step back and ask yourself, what if wanting less is the key to having more? It's not about settling or lowering your standards. It's about realizing that love is a gift, not a prize to be won. When you learn to want less, you make room for the kind of love that is freely given, not something you have to earn. Lesson 3, the power of absence. There's an old saying that absence makes the heart grow fonder. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the true power of absence isn't about distance, but about presence? Your own presence and how you choose to use it. Imagine this. You walk into a room full of people, and someone leaves an impression so strong they don't need to speak to be noticed. That's the kind of absence we're talking about. Not the literal disappearance, but the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to be the loudest to be heard. In relationships, we often fear being forgotten or left behind. We cling tightly, thinking that constant presence equals affection, that if we're not always available, we'll lose the connection. But here's where things get tricky. Being constantly present can actually dilute your impact. Think of it like a piece of music. If every note is played loudly, none of them stand out. It's the pauses, the silences between the notes that give the music its depth and emotion. So how does this apply to love and attraction? The secret lies in learning the art of intentional absence, not in playing games, but in giving the other person space to feel your absence. It's about creating moments where your absence speaks as loudly as your presence. When you're constantly available, the other person never has the chance to miss you, to reflect on your impact. But when you step back, just enough to create that space, you give them time to realize your value. Here's where ancient philosophy comes in. The philosopher Lao Tzu famously said, "When you let go of what you are, you become what you might be." This isn't just about personal growth, it's about understanding the dynamic in relationships. When you step back, when you're not constantly seeking validation or approval, you allow room for something deeper to develop. You create an opportunity for the other person to appreciate who you truly are, without the constant noise of everyday interactions. But here's the tricky part. The power of absence isn't about playing hard to get or manipulating someone's emotions. It's about mastering the art of balance, knowing when to be fully present and when to give space. It's about trusting that the connection you've built is strong enough to withstand moments of silence. You're not retreating because of fear or insecurity, but because you understand that in relationships, less can often be more. Think about it this way. When you pull away from a magnet, the force pulling it toward you increases. In the same way, when you create space, you allow the other person to move toward you naturally and willingly, without feeling suffocated or pressured. It's a subtle art, but one that requires confidence in yourself and trust in the dynamic you're building. So ask yourself, what would happen if you gave space for someone to miss you? Would they come closer, drawn in by the subtlety of your absence? It's a lesson in presence, but not the kind you expect. It's not about how much you show up, but how you choose to show up, and sometimes the best way to be noticed is by stepping back. Remember the moment we began, when you were standing at the crossroads, asking yourself if you could ever master the art of attracting love without forcing it. Now, after this journey, you've discovered the power isn't in chasing, but in becoming. The cliff you stood on wasn't a moment of indecision, it was the threshold of your transformation. You see, the secret was never about changing the other person, but about unlocking something within yourself. We started with a question. Can love come naturally, without force? Now you know that the answer isn't found in the push, but in the pull. The natural gravity you create by living authentically, embracing your worth, and offering value without expectation. The power to change your relationships is now in your hands. But this knowledge isn't just something to be stored away. It demands action. What will you do with it? Will you step forward? Or continue in the same patterns? The world won't change until you do. And before you close this chapter and move on, ask yourself, what story are you living? Is it the one you truly want, or the one you've settled for? You've seen the path, but the real question remains, are you brave enough to walk it? The mastery of relationships isn't about manipulation, nor is it about winning someone over. It's about finding peace in the art of being. As we've explored, the greatest battles are often within. By mastering that inner struggle, you gain the greatest freedom, the power to attract, not chase. Now imagine a life where you no longer feel the need to force love, where the very essence of who you are draws people in effortlessly. That life is within reach. But will you step forward and claim it? This may be the end of this video, but it's only the beginning of your journey. Keep questioning, keep evolving, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself. Take a moment now. What has this revealed about you? What will you do with the lessons you've uncovered? If this has sparked something within you, drop a comment below with your thoughts or questions. And if you found value here, hit that subscribe button to continue exploring this journey of personal mastery. Remember, you're not just watching a video, you're shaping the course of your future.